With a name like Jaxson Dart, how could you not be a good pro, right? We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and, of course, on the road. You've been asking for it, so you got it. Today, we'll have a legitimate conversation about Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, as a prospect in the NFL. We'll also decide if he would be a fit for the Cleveland Browns offense and Kevin Stefanski's system and whatnot, and my current ranking as we start talking about these rookie quarterbacks again of the top 5 rookie QBs available to Cleveland in the draft. I do want to thank you for being an everyday with the Locked On Browns podcast and for making us your first listen every day. And I've been getting inundated as I, throw out sometimes to you, the loyal listener, questions about what the things that you want me to talk about on the show. And before everything hit the fan last week with the Myles Garrett trade situation, I had a lot of people asking me to do a conversation about Jaxson Dart, what I thought about him, watch some more of his tape and kind of come back and report back to you. And I have done that. I have gone through that process. I spent late last week into the weekend a little bit, and even a little bit earlier in the week as well this week, sort of just going back and watching through some things. I obviously watched him at the Senior Bowl, but this was an opportunity to just kind of revisit some of his tape and get a better look at things and talk to people that I know who are better at scouting than I even am, or, I've obviously have an eye for certain things that I probably don't have the ability to catch at times, and, get true opinions and thoughts on him as a player. And so with all that information now in hand, I'm excited to break him down, Jaxson Dart, that is, as a prospect. And I want to start with the fact that, I understand why he is the hot name of the class right now. He had a really good Senior Bowl. There's some really nice arm talent there. And whenever you have arm talent, and whenever you have arm talent, it's always going to work in your favor. But especially this time of year when, we just had the Super Bowl on Sunday. Season's over. We're all looking for things to get excited about. We're all looking for storylines, especially in relation to the draft, because that's the big off-season show, right? Like, that's the big thing everyone gets excited about, is this the future prospects entering this league and what they mean for your respective teams, or just the league in general. And so this is the time of year where quarterbacks rise and fall up boards, and there's hype around certain guys, and guys maybe less hype around others, and it impacts where they sort of fall on teams' big boards overall. And so I think like Dart is kind of the byproduct of that a little bit. He did have the nice Senior Bowl performance. We'll get more of this at the Combine as well, when we see guys throw the football and guys go through certain drills that will either impact their stock or how teams might feel about them. And so, this is nothing new, but I can understand why Dart is kind of the prisoner of this moment, if you will, when it comes to people having this love affair with him as a player now, and starting to get excited about the idea of him as a potential quarterback at the NFL level. I do think with the name, as I said in the beginning, Jaxson Dart, how can you not be successful at the NFL level when your name's Jaxson Dart? I mean, if he is successful, that is the best name for a quarterback. I'll give him that. But I do think that while there is hype, and I see what it stems from, I think it is important to keep in mind, like Senior Bowl, pro days, Combine, like stuff that these guys do at those events can't, in my opinion, trump game tape. And that to me is like the holy grail when it comes to scouting these guys. And as I go back and watch, I just think, I can't forget about certain moments in games where there's some limitations to his game. He played in an offense first and foremost at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin that was very first read centric. And what I mean by that is, like, he didn't have to go through progressions and try to find different guys downfield, or like let things kind of develop. Things were designed, or the plays were designed to serve up certain players on a platter and make it easy for him to just kind of drop back, make a quick glance at where he's going with the football, and make the throw. I'm not saying that can't work. I'm not saying there's not offenses in the NFL that are designed like that. And there's certainly players that have limitations in the NFL that you sort of scheme that style of offense for. And so, maybe there's room for him to find growth. And that's the other thing. Like I've said it before, you do need to leave room for players to develop at the next level. That's the whole point of going pro, right? You get there, you got coaches who are going to coach you up on things, train you up on things, get you better at certain things that you're maybe not good at right now, because all these guys are still very raw in certain areas and to a certain degree. And so there is hope that he can get some of this improve in terms of like going through progressions. But right now I don't see that. And I think from the Browns standpoint, which I don't want to talk specifically about like how he fits right now, because we're going to save that for the next segment. But I do think the Browns are trying to move away from a quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who showed, some deficiencies in going through progressions, and that he kind of lost it mentally when it comes to the IQ part of it with the game and the mental part of it with the game. I don't know that they want to sign up for a quarterback that has similar issues, at least right now. And again, it's different situations because one's a veteran who just lost it and one's a rookie who has a chance to get better. But I think that sort of comes to mind for me is like, do the Browns want that style of quarterback, or do they want somebody who can already kind of come in and be a more proficient decision maker, which they've talked about this offseason already. There's an improvisation part of Jaxson Dart's game, which I think is valuable. It's going to help his draft stock, and some teams going to see that and use it as a reason to want to draft him and want to make him their quarterback. Probably even want to make him a first round pick. I think he is probably going to go in the first round. That's what a lot of the buzz is saying right now, is that he has done himself enough favors that he'll be a guy that goes maybe later first round. So, I think there's that part of it, the mobility, the ability to run the football, and if things break down, get out of the pocket and still make plays downfield or with his legs. I think we saw some of that in the Senior Bowl as well. He scored his one touchdown while running the football. He took off and ran up the middle for a score. I also do think he has proven through the tape that I've watched that he can operate very well in play action. And that's maybe the most intriguing thing for Browns fans to note, because we know Kevin Stefanski's offense is very play action heavy. It's when it's at its best. Joe Flacco ran it that way 2 years back now. And that was less of what they did with Deshaun Watson. And I think if you're looking for a quarterback that's going to be most successful in this scheme, you want somebody who can do that. So I think if you're looking for like a baseline criteria of like, what does Kevin Stefanski need, that part of Jaxson Dart's game would translate beautifully. So there are, again, it's not all negative here. And I also do think he has a really nice deep ball. We saw that in the Senior Bowl. He had that flea flicker play. And a couple other nice throws. So he can make some throws. He can make some big time throws. The play action part of his game is an intriguing one for the Browns, but I think there's enough deficiencies there right now and questions there right now about his ability to go through reads and read a defense, given the system that he's coming from in college under Lane Kiffin, that I don't know, if I'm reaching on him, is I guess my point. And what that looks like can vary. There's going to be plenty of teams that have him listed as the top, maybe a top 3 quarterback in this class, because this is a down year anyway. They might have him the next guy after Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I don't think that means you take him as high as 2, but yeah, like late first round, maybe early second, Browns at the first pick of the second round. Maybe that would be a nice sweet spot for him if he were to go. Now, that's kind of the breakdown of what I've seen from him from a tape standpoint and what he kind of brings to the table. I also think it's important to discuss how he would fit, or if he could be a fit for the Cleveland Browns. We touched on that a little bit, but more in depth, I'll give you that when we get back on the Locked On Browns podcast. Football season may be over, But the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off and you want to get a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Like I said, the NFL season's behind us. You already know, though, I'll be betting a lot of Cleveland Cavaliers basketball. They're having a tremendous season, chance to maybe win the NBA Finals. Maybe I'll even do a futures bet on them winning the NBA Finals, especially after they just traded for DeAndre Hunter at the trade deadline. But there's some really good opportunities for you to cash out big along with me. And plus, the app is easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so we broke down, or I gave you my overarching bullet-pointed perspective of Jaxson Dart, what he brings to the table as a quarterback, what I've seen from his skill set and ability. Now I think it's important to talk about how he fits with the Browns. And overall, I think I want to get it out of the way and up front here. I don't know that I think he's in this class. I think there's better fits for the Browns. I do. But the one thing that gives me, I think, some hope that he could work out if the Browns were to take him is his ability to operate in the play action. As I said, we know that's an important part of Kevin Stefanski's offense. We know that it's something that he wants to do a lot of, and his offense seems to operate at its best when when the play action game is working. Again, Joe Flacco, think Joe Flacco from 2023. And the fact that Flacco could also air it out a little bit downfield helped. And I said first segment, Jaxson Dart has shown he can do that as well. He's got a very nice deep ball. So there's some things there to his game that I think could translate. But the most important thing is, again, the ability to go through progressions. And I do think I think back to when Kevin Stefanski was working with Baker Mayfield his first couple years in Cleveland. They tried to create easy opportunities for Baker Mayfield to complete passes. They were doing a lot of RPO stuff. They were doing a lot of rollouts to get him sort of out in space, looking downfield. So there's a lot of boot type plays, routes crossing the field. When he was in the pocket, they were making the quick throws. It was slant routes, short stuff that got him to be able to get rid of the ball quickly. So I think because of how Baker performed. I mean, listen, he took the team to the playoffs in 2020. You win a playoff game. There was moderate levels of success there that proved that marriage could have worked, I think, longer term if they had believed that Baker was worth investing in. I think similarly, like Jaxson Dart could have that same sort of success under Stefanski. And that they could sort of scheme things up for him to not have to read a defense for multiple seconds at a time and go through his progressions and then throw the ball, but make the throws easy for him, get guys open quickly. There's an ability to do that. I just have questions about whether or not that's the type of quarterback the Browns want to run with. As I said, they already pivoted away from Baker Mayfield because they didn't feel like he was worth paying the big money to at some point. And they felt like he had limitations. And on top of, the bad leadership qualities they felt at the time, he was a little too immature, all those different things, which, again, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think I don't know that they're going to prioritize drafting somebody and building around somebody who, they don't necessarily feel like is ready to run this system in its purest form, and that they have to sort of already start scheming for the deficiencies they have. If they're going to take a quarterback, let me rephrase, because it's all about value. It is all about value when it comes to Jaxson Dart. And what I mean by that is, if the Browns decide we're going to trade back, if that's where their heads are at with this, if they end up saying, let's trade back from 2, we're not going to take a quarterback here. Then yeah, somebody like Jaxson Dart makes sense, because the value you're going to get for him late first round, if you trade back in and maybe get that 5th year option, or if you take him with the first pick of the second round where the Browns are currently situated, I think that makes a ton of sense, because then you're sort of like, you didn't necessarily prioritize quarterback from the jump. You prioritized other positions, and you're hoping that you can hit on somebody a little bit later, like Jaxson Dart, to sort of right the ship at that position or develop somebody. But we know the current state of the Browns right now. I've been asking the question the last couple of days and week or so of if Myles Garrett up in the ante and going public with his trade request is adding some pressure to the organization to take a quarterback at 2. Because if you get that position right, maybe you can sell Myles Garrett on sticking around. Maybe you can get this thing back on track a little bit sooner, and that'll all bear itself out. We'll get a better sense of how they feel about these top 2 quarterbacks, and Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, coming up in the weeks ahead. And maybe they feel like they've identified their franchise guy. And that's the bigger point for me. Like, I don't know that I feel Jaxson Dart's going to be like a top 10 guy in this league. Maybe he could be. And I guess you could say that about any of these quarterbacks, but I feel better about the possibilities of Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward being that than I do Jaxson Dart. And so if they find themselves settling on the idea of, no, we got to swing big on quarterback early, we got to take 1 to 2, and we'll address other needs later. Like, I think, I think they're doing that with the idea that, like, we want a quarterback that is going to, yes, all these quarterbacks are going to need some coaching up. They all have certain rawnesses to their, they all have a certain rawness in their game in certain areas. But if they're going to take 1 to 2, they're picking the guy that they think is the most equipped to handle the transition to the NFL and, step in and maybe even start immediately, right? So I think that has to be at the forefront of the conversation here. And if that's the route, again, if they're waiting for Dart, then that's not their thought process anyway at that point, because they're prioritizing other things. But that's why I don't know that, like, I'm jumping at Dart being the selection or the route they take, because I'm starting to think more and more that they are going to end up taking 1 to 2. And I don't think Dart is worthy of being taken at number 2. I think most people would agree with you on that. But it does come down to me, just like it comes down to his skill set. What I laid out is what he does well and what he maybe doesn't do as well. We heard Tommy Rees at his introductory press conference for the team's offensive coordinator spot talk about how he is looking for an elite decision maker in his next quarterback, or in the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. That's the thing that he thinks is the most important. It's not something that you should take lightly or forget about. Again, running Kevin Stefanski's offense, going back to that system, they want somebody who can read defenses. They want somebody who can make the throws that need to be made, and go through their progressions, doesn't have to improvise. You don't have to make some specially built offense for him. They want a plug and play type of player. And I think Dart could be that in some respects. Again, the play action part of his game and the success he had in those plays stands out. But I don't know that he's ready to sort of take that leap or that jump at the NFL level to just step in immediately and, like, start day 1 per se. So if the Browns heads are, but to a much larger point, if the Browns heads are out, we need somebody who's going to start day 1 anyway. I don't think they're taking Dart. I think they're taking one of the guys at 2. But that's, I think, a sort of place to be as we talk about, or sort of where we should be, what we should be thinking about as we talk about fits for this team. I think Dart is worth considering if you wait on a quarterback, and at some point the value will be there, likely at the end of the first round or early second round. But I don't know if he's the fit in terms of what the Browns are looking for, because of what Tommy Rees said, because we know Kevin Stefanski's offense needs a good decision maker, or a proficient decision maker. I think there's some hurdles there, or some roadblocks there, that somebody like Jaxson Dart would have to clear. That doesn't mean he can't be successful at the NFL. Doesn't mean he can't be successful for the Browns if they take him. But I think right now, like, they're going to prioritize somebody who is that better decision maker, who has shown more at the college level that they can do those things and go through their progressions and play in a system that probably has that player more pro ready than what I think Ole Miss was to Dart. So I think that's probably a good way to put where he fits into the picture for the Cleveland Browns if they were to take him. But as we talk about this quarterback class, I think it'd be a fun practice to go through and rank, sitting here today on February 12th, Still plenty of time for this to fluctuate and change. But I'm going to give you my top 5 ranking of the rookie quarterbacks coming out as things stand right now. We will talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing. There's no better way to stay in the game than with PrizePicks, with the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can cash out with 1,000 times your cash. This week, I'm looking at Jaxson Tatum under against Wemby and the Spurs before the All-Star break here. Best part about PrizePicks too is that it's quick and easy. You can set up your lineup in less than 15 minutes. Plus, I love their weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even better value. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so as promised, we love doing top 5 rankings on this podcast, on this show. I did a top 5 ranking of the Browns' biggest needs several weeks back. Now we're going to do a top 5 ranking of the Browns, or not even the Browns, the rookie quarterback options that are coming out in this class this year. And I want to be clear because I am going to start next week doing a big board where I dedicate a segment to mapping out where I have, and this is the big board conversation is going to span free agency and the NFL draft, like what my big board looks like for these quarterbacks and who I have at the top of the list of quarterbacks that the Browns should go after, etc. So we will get to that coming up starting next week. This is different. This is just a straight up ranking of just the rookie quarterbacks, how I feel like they should sort of be set up right now. And we'll go in reverse order here. Number 5 on the list is Jalen Milroe. I have wavered in my feelings about Jalen Milroe. I actually want to leave him off this list initially because I have some serious doubts about his game. He's just too inconsistent of a passer. But the reason he cracks the top 5 is the athleticism. We know that he's a tremendous athlete. I know Dane Brugler did like his top 100 players this week, and he talked about Jalen Milroe having the talent from an athleticism standpoint to be a day one pick. Like that's why he's getting so much love, why he's getting talked about so much, because he is just this tremendous player from a standpoint of like athleticism and what he can do on the field. And so from that standpoint, I get why there's a lot of hype there. And I think he at least deserves to be in the top 5 because of that. But I'm pretty low on Jalen Milroe as a quarterback prospect. And I'm not quite sure I feel like he's going to translate to the NFL level. And I have a lot of questions there. So for me, he's 5. And that could change. Again, that's why I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this like once a week. We'll pick a show to do my top 5 rookie QB ranking and kind of give you a sense of where my head's at with things. Because like I know Kyle McCord's a guy who's getting a lot of traction right now. I got to go back and watch more of his Syracuse tape. Okay? Because I saw him a lot at Ohio State 2 years ago. And I have my thoughts on that. But I need to watch his Syracuse tape to really get a sense of where I feel with him. But maybe he'll be in my top 5. We'll see. But for now, Jalen Milroe comes in at number 5. Number 4 for me is Will Howard. I still remain intrigued. And listen, I get it. I got the Ohio State helmet over my shoulder. You can call me biased if you want, being an Ohio State guy or an Ohio State fan. But I'm intrigued by Will Howard, the leadership he brings to the table. I think he showed some things in the college football playoff to at least make me, raise the eyebrows a little bit and want to get a sense throughout this pre-draft process if there's room for him to develop at the NFL level. I did talk about it earlier on in the show though. I can't look past the game tape first and foremost. That's more that value that matters more. That has more value to me than anything he's going to do at the combine or a pro day or whatever. And that's all fine and good. I still think though that he showed some nice promise and there's his ability to get better as the season went on, and especially throughout the college football playoff is something that deserves to be, paid attention to. And that makes him an interesting prospect as he goes to the NFL. The number 3 on my list of the top 5 rookie quarterbacks coming out this year, I'm going to put Jaxson Dart, who we just talked about throughout the show. I don't need to spend a lot of time on it because I gave you the full breakdown the last couple segments. But I think I'm putting Jaxson Dart 3. There's some promising traits and skill set with him. There's also some questions I have, especially about his ability to read defenses and go through his progressions, which I think is going to be valued by the Browns this offseason. My number 2 quarterback, as we get to the top 2 here, and you know who the top 2 are going to be. It's just a matter of who I have where. I'm putting Cam Ward 2. And this just, to me, comes down to the fact that I think Shedeur Sanders, who obviously is going to be number 1 if I'm putting Cam Ward number 2, I just think Shedeur is more NFL ready. And I because the conversation around those two guys right now is like Cam is the more talented player. He has more talent that he's bringing to the next level than Shedeur Sanders does, which is why he's maybe got a little bit of a higher ceiling and people feel better about if he goes early. Maybe they can turn him into that franchise guy and he'll, blossom at the next level and take the reins and run with it. But the reason I'm putting Shedeur ahead of him is because right now I think Shedeur is a little more NFL ready. And I'm also thinking about this from a Browns lens where I think, again, decision-making is going to be a key thing the Browns are looking for. Shedeur has that already. And I also think like Shedeur, he doesn't have necessarily the arm talent of Cam Ward, but he can still make all the throws on top of being able to go through the progressions, on top of still having some athleticism. Yes, there's still some rawness, some things he has to clean up in his game. And that's where I'm leaving the room for him to develop and coaches to coach. But, I think he also takes well to coaching. Like he has a good head on his shoulders. I feel really good about Shedeur's ability to get to the next level and put in the work. And, you talk about players at the next level who aren't perfect. I think of Jalen Hurts, a guy that just won the Super Bowl. They've put a lot of talent around him, and there's constantly questions about is he good enough? Can he make this throw? Can he make that throw? But guess what? When push came to shove, biggest game of the season, biggest games of the season, throughout the entire playoff, he was making the big throws. He was making the big plays. And I see a lot of that in Shedeur where he's going to step up in those moments, even if there's some areas of his game that aren't quite, elite. He'll figure it out and he'll get you as close to elite as possible with those things because he's got the IQ and he's got these smarts to sort of get there. And he's got this great, willpower, desire to be great. So not to say Cam Ward can't, but I just think there's a rawness and sort of a recklessness to his game that I don't like as much as I do with Shedeur. So Shedeur 1, Cam Ward 2, Jaxson Dart 3, Will Howard 4, Jalen Milroe 5. That is my current top 5 for the rookie quarterbacks coming out this year. And it could change. We'll do it once a week. We'll see what it looks like next week. Maybe there'll be no change. Maybe there will be some change. But that's where I stand right now on February 12th. Thanks for joining me as always, Dog Pound, to talk about your favorite football team. We will keep the conversation going throughout the rest of this week and hope you continue to make us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL show. Or if you want to keep it local, you can check out Locked On Cavs, Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. Peace.